Happy Thanksgiving, folks. This is Joe Firestone for Empowering Democracy. And I just made it. I just made it to this stream. We were cooking lamb shanks today for Thanksgiving dinner.
Not we.
And Bonnie says, not we. She says, me.
You.
Anyway, I was cooking those lamb shanks. And I started a little bit late. I got wrapped up in Twitter early today. And I only started the preparations about 4 o'clock. Those preparations, getting everything prepped and everything, took about an hour. So I only got started really braising the stuff, which is the whole dish there. I only got started doing that about 5. And so, hi there. And Lana says, I have the Vikings game on. Okay. Yeah, the food prep was a lot of work. So it started to braise at maybe 5 o'clock. Then I had to watch it and let it braise a while, come back and watch it again. Watch the clock to be ready when it was time to make the risotto. So this occurred about 7 o'clock, and I figured the lamb shanks still had about another half hour to braise. And I had to boil off the excess of the sauce to make a sauce, that was really, really good. And hi, Cece. Cece says, gobble, gobble, here on break. So he finished about 7:30, and we sat down to eat. How was it, Bonnie?
Delicious. Really wonderful.
Okay, we served a bed of saffron risotto with shiitake mushrooms and green onions.
Green peas.
And green peas right at the end, right at the very end. And of course, some Parmesan cheese to make it real creamy. And we put that down as the bed. I carved the meat off the lamb shanks, most of the meat off the lamb shanks. And so we put the meat on top of the risotto, and we drowned the whole thing in the red wine sauce. What did I put in there? Carrots and green onions and garlic and fresh rosemary. So we drowned the stuff in that sauce. And then it was just so great.
Yeah.
It was just so great. And we have enough for tomorrow as well. In fact, we have more than enough sauce, but we have enough of the meat for tomorrow also, and enough of the risotto for tomorrow. So we're looking forward to tomorrow. We couldn't eat any more than we ate, of course. I will say this for it, though. When you're eating turkey, it seems like you can eat a lot and a lot and a lot. Okay, and then it makes you go to sleep because of the tryptophan in it. And you've also eaten too much in the way of trimmings. So it doesn't really feel real great. But the lamb shank wasn't nearly as heavy, and each of us ate about a half a lamb shank each because we have just about the same amount of meat left for tomorrow.
Took some of the stuff out of the bones.
Yeah, Bonnie got some of the marrow out of the bones, so she was really happy with that.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a Thanksgiving meal to remember, especially because of all the work we put in on it, and Bonnie put in some work too. Uh, it really turned out well, made us feel really mellow, and it made us feel like coming on here and making this 9 o'clock show after all. We didn't think we'd make it about 7:30 or so because we just had sat down to eat, and we didn't know whether we were going to make it for this show. But when we got done with everything and it was all so good, I felt very motivated. So I'm here, and Bonnie's here to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for coming. Kay says, been watching Patagonia on CNN. People are actually trying to save that place. Why, has Patagonia been burning, Kay? I'm not up on what's been happening in Patagonia. So if you can fill me in, Kay, I would be obliged. Now, I've been watching a lot of stuff about uh, Ukraine and the war, the upcoming Russian offensive, the evident complete lack of understanding in the West of what the hell is going on, and just sitting. Yeah, I know it's at the very south end, okay, of Argentina, but is there some kind of grave natural disaster there? Yeah, I know it's at the south end of Argentina. Okay, but what is it about it that they have to save? Are they having a natural disaster there that's of note? Okay, anyway, that looks like something that's going to explode, okay, at any time. Of course, fights have broken out among the EU nations. In particular, Italy and France are fighting because the Italians have been bearing the burden of migrants who are coming to Europe. All I can say is, depending on what the Russians do and how they run their campaign, there might be an enormous number of migrants in the middle who aren't properly called migrants but refugees. They may be flooding into Europe, and the word is that Europe isn't going to want them. Of course, in their case, they're not going to come in through Italy, so other nations are going to be having to bear the burden of that particular migration. Yeah, I didn't know there were any issues going on, okay, in Patagonia, but Kay said earlier, been watching Patagonia on CNN. People are actually trying to save that place. I wasn't aware Patagonia was in danger. Anyway, some people have been having the thought I'm not going to name any people, but some people have been having the thought that what's been going on there in Europe is something that's been planned by American elites, and that their plan was to have a bit of a collapse of civilization in Europe and a migration of European industry over here. Now, I'm not going to say that may not be a result of what everybody has been doing, what the various people have been doing. It may very well be that result. But I find it hard to believe that this was deliberately planned by our elites. For one thing, I think it represents them as evil Svengalis who are too clever by half. Too clever by half and too evil by half. I'm ready to believe that our State Department people are pretty callous. I'm also ready to believe that they're not half as bright as they think they are. I'm also ready to believe they don't understand Russia at all. I'm ready to believe a lot of bad things about them. But I'm not ready to believe that, because that is positively Hitlerian. And so I'm not ready to believe that. That may be what's happening. But I believe that what's happening was or is in large measure unplanned. I think the cover story that we intended to take down Russia, oh, I believe that. In other words, that what we were doing here was aiming for the breakup of Russia into a disorganized set of smaller countries. I believe that. I think we've been running foreign policy with those kinds of ideas for quite a long time. So I do believe that. But okay, I don't believe the idea that we've been trying to destroy the industry of Europe so we could have those industries come over here. That's all a little too Svengali for me. So that's all I'm going to say about that. What I came on here to do was to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving and to see if you had anything you wanted to say to me or ask me. I said, did not know any issues were going on in Patagonia. In case said no issues, just good people. And Cece says, how can Europe deny the climate refugees when the reason that Europe is so rich from plundering countries like Africa? Well, of course, Cece, you know Africa's a continent and not a country. And I know you mean so rich from plundering countries in Africa. Yes, we have been doing that. But the countries in Africa we're talking about are not sending their oil to Europe and their natural gas to Europe so that the German industries can run profitably, and so that industries in the UK can run profitably. And it's also true that I think the UK is having a very tough time right now, and that a severely depressive economy is likely to spread to many other nations of Europe as well. I don't think that's anything that the collective West has bargained for, but it's what they got because they misunderstood Russia. They severely underestimated its staying power and its internal strength, and they didn't understand that a war of mutual economic sanctions was going to be costly for both. Of course, we in the United States could afford to apply all kinds of sanctions to all kinds of nations. We do it all the time. But the Europeans were not in that position, and they should not have joined us in that. Well, it's good the UK is charging the oil company taxes. That is good. We ought to be doing that here. Cece says, I'm thankful for you, Joseph Firestone. I learn something every time I can come by. Grateful, in fact. Well, thank you, C. Swift. C. Swift. I try my best so that everyone can learn something when they stop by. So anyway, I think that's all I want to say for tonight. So again, happy Thanksgiving. I will be back tomorrow, Black Friday, with my 3 shows. And then I'll be keeping to my regular schedule of 3 shows from Monday through Friday. So I hope you had a wonderful day today, as we did.
Enjoyed your family.
We hope that you've enjoyed your family. Okay, if you are lucky enough to have some family. And so I hope you enjoy the rest of this weekend too. It's usually a great weekend for most people here in America. And Cece said, I missed dessert. What was it? Well, we haven't had any dessert yet. We usually don't do too much with dessert because
We had chocolate.
we control our sweets very carefully. However, we do buy one of the Trader Joe products, specifically the Chocolate Lovers chocolate product, which is 85% pure chocolate. And it's pretty low on the sugar. And we really like that. And so what we had for dessert was so far a small amount of chocolate. Now what we usually do for dessert, and tonight is no exception, is that we break off a strip of chocolate like this, See? Just a little chocolate. And that will go to Bonnie.
Thank you.
And the other half of that strong, of that little chip of chocolate, will go to me. This is the second time tonight that we have done that.
Great.
Cece says, chocolate with bananas is my favorite. Our favorite used to be Nutella with bananas. But that's too rich for our diet these days. Cece says, Kay says, back to you, D. Missed a couple of comments here. Around the world with Brandy, and D says, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And Kay says, happy tea day, Joe and Bonnie. I love you both. Thank you, Kay. We love you as well. So glad you're here tonight. Steve Day says, happy Black Friday. Keep your wallet in your pants. Well, we'll be here for the good part of the day, so we are going to pretty much keep our wallet in our pants, or in the case of Bonnie, her wallet in her purse. Cece Swift says, can we see Bonnie in her turkey costume doing a feathery tango? Chocolate. Lana says, low sugar is good. It is. Cece says, oh, Nutella is heaven. It is. We haven't eaten any Nutella in years. We just kind of stick with close to pure chocolate. We do occasionally have some ice cream, but not too often. Cece says, not spending money. Corporations have too much as it is. They do. They do. So once again, good night, everybody. And we will see you tomorrow. Thank you for coming. Cece says, your dinner sounds gourmet.
It was.
Yeah, I guess it was pretty gourmet. Okay, I'm not going to end just yet. I'm going to show you the recipe.
No.
No?
No. I can look up the recipe.
No, they actually can't, because this is my recipe.
Okay.
So, my recipe after doing research. Now, you know, my approach to everything is research, right? Okay, this is a recipe that I basically collated from a lot of other recipes. We needed a recipe that would be for 2 lamb shanks. So the ingredients, 2 large lamb shanks, 30 milliliters extra virgin olive oil, which sort of means you pour a little bit of extra virgin olive oil in the pan and you swish it around a little. Then you take a fennel bulb, cut it in half, and then chop it up. We like to use fennel as opposed to celery or some other things. Then this recipe calls for 1 leek or a small onion. We did have a red onion, but we decided to use green onions,
We used 2 red onions.
and they turned out very,
Oh.
very well,
Oh,
actually, in the
2
dish.
2 tomatoes.
We didn't use 8 cloves of minced garlic, as this one calls for. We used about 10. And 750 milliliters of red wine is about a third of a bottle. It's a third of a fifth. We used a red blend that basically was a blend of Merlot, Shiraz, and Cabernet.
Trader Joe's.
And we used about 500 milliliters. If you're interested in the brand, we used Charles Shaw, which used to be called $3 Chuck. But now it's like $4 Chuck because of the inflation. At one time it was $2 Chuck. But anyway, we used 500 milliliters of red wine, 2/3 of a bottle. And of course, you can't get the lamb stock. So we put in about 1 liter, okay, of chicken broth. More like 2 liters, okay, of chicken broth. To which we added tomato paste, okay, to darken it up. We also diced 2 Roma tomatoes, and we put those in there too. And we put a handful of shredded carrots, generous handful of shredded carrots in there. And we did this on the stovetop. We didn't actually put it into the oven at all. Many recipes dealing with lamb shanks, say that you have to put it in the oven. But we found it could all be done on the stovetop in previous years. So we did it all on the stovetop. We browned the lamb shanks first. We set them aside after getting a really good crust. We added the green onions and the fennel to the pot and the tomatoes. Okay, and the garlic. And we cooked it until it began to caramelize. Then I deglazed with the red wine. I added the broth. I didn't have to add any water at that point. And then I just braised the lamb shanks. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I replaced the lamb shanks in there after I took them out and set them aside. After I added the broth, okay, I re-added the lamb shanks, made sure they were covered with the braising liquid. Then I just braised them for 2.5 hours. Checked every once in a while to see if they were fork tender yet. With lamb shanks, you got to make them fork tender. And that was it. It's pretty easy to make compared to a lot of other recipes. Now, to make it really taste good, what you have to do is you have to boil off the excess liquid, okay, at the end. Just boil it down until the sauce is really thick. because I had the rosemary on it. Okay, this time. The flavor at the end was unbelievable. Now, for the risotto, I used Chef Piero's risotto recipe with wild mushrooms, but I didn't have any wild mushrooms. So I used shiitake mushrooms. I also cut everything in half of this particular recipe. It called for 1.5 cup butter. I used a quarter cup.
Yeah.
Called for a cup of sliced shiitake mushrooms or wild mushrooms. I cut that down to 1 cup as opposed to 2 as specified here. I used a cup of arborio rice. I didn't use any organic wine, and I used Pinot Grigio. I used about a cup of Pinot Grigio instead of the organic Chardonnay. Cut the chicken stock down to roughly 20 ounces rather than 40. I did use the 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese. And that was grated because we grate our Parmesan cheese. Or Barney grates our Parmesan cheese, actually, for us. We didn't use kosher salt because we don't have kosher salt. We used just plain table salt to taste and pepper to taste. And we didn't use any butter. We used a good margarine. That was organic, by the way. And we cooked the risotto as it says here. I was very careful when I added the chicken stock. I went through all the motions of constantly stirring. I was glad I did because the risotto came out great also. At the very end, I did stir in the Parmesan cheese and salted and peppered it to taste. And then towards the very end, okay, I added some green peas also, the frozen green peas. And they were pretty fresh tasting when I served the risotto. So that's it. What I mainly thought about today was recipes for making that. So I guess that didn't show up too well, did it? And so anyway, that's basically what happened. That's how I cooked it. That was the recipe. And it really worked well. Kay says, Christmas has been sold. Yes, it has. Brandy and Dee said good night. Actually, this was Dee who said good night. Dee from around the world with Brandy and Dee. Cece said buenas noches. And buenas noches to you, Cece. Cece said, oh, ancient Chinese secret. Oh, you mean the rosemary? Lana said, please everyone hit the like button. Thank you, Lana. Please everyone hit the like button. And please hit the share and subscribe buttons also. No crushed red pepper in the sauce. It makes food pop. It does make food pop, and but I didn't think of doing it because Bonnie doesn't really care for red pepper. But this sauce popped anyway. I guarantee it. I don't know if it was the rosemary that did it, but something really did do it. So good night, everybody. Once again, have a very happy rest of the evening and have a great weekend. I'll see you again tomorrow.